Hello, everyone, and welcome to At Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, Thasunda Duckett, CEO of TIAA. Thasunda, great to see you.
It's great to see you again.
Thank you so much for joining us because I want to know about what TIAA is up to these days. And people have heard of the company, but maybe they don't know the full scale and the purview. So could you tell us about that, please?
No, I'd love to. So to give you a little context from a historical perspective, we are 106 years old. We were founded by Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie observed that faculty was educating some of the world's most brilliant minds in academia, but they were retiring in poverty and not with dignity. And as a result, we formed TIAA to make sure that people could have an in-plan annuity that could give them an income stream that they could not outlive and be on a path to have a more secure retirement. And so fast forward 106 years later, we serve thousands of institutions, millions of participants. We operate without profit, so we return all of our profits back to our participants. We have a board of governors that in effect owns us on behalf of those participants. And we're just very serious about making sure that more people can have a dignified retirement.
Right. And that point you made about the board of governors and the members or the customers, the shareholders, the policyholders, it's sort of like Vanguard in that sense, that it's those are the people that own the company. So you guys are kind of the retirement experts. And it's, again, the company's kind of unusual. You're a Fortune 500 company, but you're also a nonprofit that way, in that sense. And so I wonder how you think about running TIAA and what is your management perspective? What are your goals, Thasunda?
No, you're right. We have a $1.3 trillion assets under management. We've been around over 100 years. We have this core retirement business. We have asset management with Naveen, and we have our wealth business, making sure that we're providing advice to millions of people so they can have a real life goal plan, so they can have confidence to and through retirement. And so when I think about our vision and what we're up to, it's a nod to our mission. What we're up to is doing our part to solve a crisis. We know that 40% of all Americans run the risk of running out of money. We know that 11,000 people over the age of 65 every day are retiring, and that's on the backdrop of a $4 trillion savings gap. We also know that 25% of all Americans in retirement rely on Social Security for 90% of their income, which says it's not enough. And so what we're up to is saying, how do we continue to be that leader in lifetime income, serving our core market, which is our 403B market, higher ed, K through 12, not-for-profit. But most recently, we moved our product solutions to not just a 403B market, but moved our solutions to also be able to serve the 401k market, providing our retirement expertise, our retirement product solutions. And that is a nod to saying, what more can we do in an in-plan default so that people can have within their allocation access to lifetime income. And so when I think about our strategy, being a leader in lifetime income, but at the heart of it is delighting our clients and our client experience. And so we spend a lot of time listening to our clients, understanding what are the problems we need to solve, what are the investments we need to make in our technology and our capabilities, and how do we become the easiest retirement company to do business with. And so we're up to a lot, but the mission is clear, and I'm really excited about the momentum that we're garnering.
Yeah, I have so many follow-up questions. Well, first of all, do you think this crisis in America, this retirement crisis, some of this has to do with the shift from defined benefit to 401k. Have 401ks been a failure, a success, mixed bag? How would you characterize that?
Yeah, when you think about it, we talked about the stool of you had Social Security. Social Security is not designed to take care of every expense. But for a long period of time, to your point, look at the 70s, where 70% of Americans had a defined benefit plan. That number is now 12%. And so that means that guaranteed income, what is that paycheck that I know I won't outlive, that paycheck that can take care of my basic needs? The defined contribution plan is a really good plan and provides really good options. We would say that there's an opportunity to bring more into that plan that includes something like a pension, which is that in-plan annuity, so that there is an income stream that they can say in retirement, I want to convert some of my allocation into income that I won't outlive. And I think with having the ability to have guaranteed income along with Social Security, along with your exposure to equities and fixed income more broadly, you can have more confidence in retirement. But I think the problem that we have to continue to solve, especially with people living longer, how do we give people confidence that they will not outlive their money and they can continue to take care of their basic needs? And so I don't think it's about a failure or a success. I think it's always about iterating and always about looking at how do we work with government, how do we work in industry to continue to understand what is getting in the way for people to allocate to their retirement, but also stay in their retirement plans in a way that it can ultimately work for them for the long term.
Right, right. And so does this entail outreach? I mean, some of it is personal responsibility,
Yes.
right? And so as part of this, you making people aware, how does that fit in?
Yeah, so it takes public-private partnership and the individual. And so we have what we call a retirement bill of rights. And so we believe that every American should have a dignified retirement. We believe that every American should have access to low-cost retirement solutions and have it be easily available. And to your point, we believe education is really important. And so how do we go about it? For us, we believe that the easiest way is through the design of your 401k plan, of your 403b plan, making it easy where every American can auto-enroll. You auto-enroll. You can opt out because maybe you have a situation, but then the next year, we enroll you back in. Auto escalation. So maybe when you started your job, you can only afford X percent of the dollars. But if you increase it up to that match, you're taking full advantage of your benefits. You're taking full advantage of the compounding over time. You're getting the tax benefit. And we believe making it easy helps people get on a path to a more dignified retirement. And when I think about the components of the problem we need to solve and how we do it together collectively, there's an access gap. We know that 57 million Americans, private sector workers, do not have access to a defined contribution plan. That is something that we have to continue to work, good policy, good partnership, especially with small businesses, on how can they make it easier for their employees to be able to contribute to a retirement plan. We have a savings gap. We know that millions of Americans are not saving enough to be able to convert that to income that they can count on. And then lastly, we do have this guarantee gap, and that's the nod to pensions coming down and being able to have in your plan a design that can give you that guaranteed income that you can depend on.
Right. I know that there's statistics also that show a lot of people who have access to these plans don't take advantage of
Yes.
them. And that's an issue as well. And so I'm wondering, is this something that you work with, say, the institutions that are connected to you guys, say traditionally colleges and universities? How do you work with colleges and universities and other member organizations like that?
Well, I love the fact that you pointed out many times we have plans, but everyone may not be taking advantage of it. And that's a personal thing for me. My father worked for over 30 years and he was able to have a pension. But for the first 30 plus years before we had a conversation or an intervention, he never contributed $1 to his 401k plan. And this is a man that worked extraordinarily hard to put food on the table for my brothers and myself. And so this is something that is personal, that it's not enough to just have a plan. And it could be a beautiful plan. It's about making sure, are we making sure that it is accessible to everyone, from the people that are cleaning the grounds all the way up to the C-suite. So what I feel great about in terms of who we serve, many of our institutions, one, they have great plans. Two, we work to make sure, do you have auto enrollment? If they don't, helping them understand who doesn't have access to the plan, who's not contributing. Because what you might find is there's a certain area within your university or a certain group of individuals that are not enrolling in the plan. And how do we provide that information to our plan sponsors or universities or hospitals so that they can give us insights on what can we do together to reach them, to make sure, do they know that they have this benefit? Do they know it is for them? And do they know about the match? Do they know what it can mean for them? And so education is very important, and it's partnership. So we work with universities and all of our clients to say, how do you make sure you have a plan that's designed to meet your needs? How do we make sure that everyone understands the plan and is taking advantage of it? And then what are the insights that we can share that can make sure that it's working hard for the reason why you designed the plan, which is to make sure that your participants or your employees can have a secure retirement.
I've heard small businesses in particular, which may not be your purview per se, but I hear others say that these plans are expensive to implement. They're too expensive for us. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I do think that when you look at the stat of 57 million workers, many of that is small business. And so I do think that is another opportunity for us to work private and public sector to say, how do we think about the capabilities of within that everyday small business owner that does not have a big department, a benefits department, and HR? How do they have a system that can ride the rails, that when someone is contributing or you're giving someone the paycheck, within that paycheck, they can contribute to an IRA? And so there's some really good ideas that are taking place that we're looking at as an industry. But I think the spirit is, how do you make it accessible and easy? And that is definitely working with small businesses to understand, how do we make retirement accessible for small business owners to be able to provide that to their employees. And I think that is a problem that we need to solve, but it's an opportunity for us to continue to work together.
Shifting gears a little bit, Thasunda, what does your relationship with clients and maybe just your general perspective tell you about the economy right now, and how maybe is that impacting TIAA and its members?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the economy, I would say the word that we would probably all use is uncertainty. When you look at the backdrop of the geopolitical environment, when you think about, we're having a political election here in the US, but also there's elections going on around the world. And when we look at just the level of uneasiness, we know that inflation has been high. Why that matters to us is that when I think about who we serve, taking that burden where the cost of everyday goods coming down matters. Because when costs are up and you're making a decision, do I continue to contribute to my retirement plan, or do I reduce that contribution so that I can afford the food on the table, the higher electric bill, or whatever those basic needs are, becomes a really hard decision. And so when I look at the health of our participant base, overall, it's healthy. Overall, they're staying engaged and contributing, but it is something that we look at. We look at, are there any different aspects of our participant base that's reduced their contributions or taking on hardship? That is where the economy really matters to us, is what does it mean to the participants that we serve?
How do you feel about diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and also about efforts to push back those initiatives as well?
I mean, when I think about diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, I think about the problem we're really trying to solve. At the end of the day, what we're looking to solve is recognizing that the workforce many years ago was very monolithic. And over time, as women entered the workforce, we started to understand what are some of the barriers where women may not ascend or they may opt out. For example, when women are pregnant, it was not until the late 80s where you were able to have maternity leave in a quality way. And then over time, you understand, what about paternity leave? It wasn't until the 90s when you think about the American Disability Act and recognizing that just because you have a different ability does not mean that your career should be stunted or that you should not have the ability to be able to ascend. And so ADA passed. And when I think about when it looks at race, or when I think about even the multi-generational workforce we're in, DEI is about an acknowledgement that we started in one place and the workforce has changed to the better and for the better. But there may be opportunities that we can do better in making sure that it is working for everyone. And so regardless of the polarization, regardless of all the issues, I look at the outcome, and the outcome is about talent. And the outcome is about making sure that everyone can see this company as one that I can work for, I can be inclusive about, and I can ascend. And that is really at the heart of what we care about. And so for us, it's very important. I don't care what you call it. I call it talent. And I call it making sure that we're addressing problems for anyone to make sure that they can feel more included in the workforce. And that, to me, is at the heart of what we do. It's what we've always done. And it's very important when you think about the problems that we need to solve today and tomorrow. We have to make sure that we can cast the widest net possible.
You became CEO, 3 years ago, after a long career at JP Morgan Chase. How would you describe your leadership style, Thasunda, and how do you relate to the workforce?
Yeah, when I think about my leadership style, I would say I'm very passionate, purpose-driven, very authentic, very, very focused on execution and the outcomes, especially when you think about what we do every day, making sure people can have a dignified retirement. And so when I think about how does that leadership come to life, You have to be curious. I'm a very curious leader. And I think, waking up every day and talking to my colleagues, I get to get smarter every day and ask a ton of questions. I do this thing called coffee and tea, where I meet with a small group of people and just say, if you're the CEO, what would you do better? What would you do differently? But I group them, whether it's our executive assistants or new hires or people that have been here for over 20 years or different locations or different job families. The reason is when you are a leader that is passionate about what we do and serious, you recognize you cannot make those decisions by yourself and not even with your executive team. You have to be present, you have to engage with your employee base, and that authenticity has to come through for them to be willing to give you what I call the truth serum to inform us on what we can do better. And so that's what I would think, the team would describe me. You have to have fun if you're spending all the time that we spend with this passion, but definitely inspirational, intellectually curious, very much authentic and focused on the outcomes of the serious matter of the problem we're trying to solve.
I mentioned you work at JP Morgan Chase. You're also on the board of Nike now. I'm wondering what you've learned from both of those organizations and also what you think you've brought to both those organizations.
Well, what I really value is that I've had the privilege to work for 3 great companies. Fannie Mae is where I started my career. JP Morgan Chase for 17 years under the leadership of Jamie Dimon and Gordon Smith and so many just amazing people. And now here at TIAA. And then when I think about the opportunity to be on boards, whether it's public boards or philanthropic boards, what I get to learn is I get to observe from others. I get to understand how people think about problems, how they solve them. I get to think about what are the learnings that people have made and how does that apply to make me be a sharper leader. And I think about how do I make sure that I stay sharp, not just within my industry, but looking around the corner, because what may be impacting someone else's industry today could impact our industry tomorrow, especially when we think about technology. What I bring is clearly, from a board perspective, it's all in the art of the question and good governance. What I bring is perspective. I've been in financial services for over 20 plus years. I bring the lens of coming from parents Otis and Rosie Brown from humble beginnings. I bring the lens of the voice of the people. What would someone think about this? How would they feel about this? Because I am out there talking to the people. And so I think that as much as I am learning, I'm hoping I'm giving as well and helping to make the companies wherever I've worked for a little bit better. And clearly, being able to make sure that the information, the insights that they're giving me is absolutely helping me become a better leader every day.
I want to ask you a little bit more about your upbringing, Rosie and Otis Brown. You were born in New York, but grew up in Texas,
Yes.
University of Houston,
Yes.
Baylor Bear,
Yes.
all that good stuff.
All the good stuff.
How did that inform you?
Oh, wow. I mean, my parents are my heroes. When I think about...
You have a foundation.
I do. Otis and Rosie Brown
Love for them,
Foundation.
Yes.
I mean, wow, you see, I smile when you ask this question because just think about, I am first generation, full integration. My parents grew up in the segregated South. My mother is a retired educator. My dad is a blue-collar worker. My dad told me to always reach for the moon because even if I missed, I would be among the stars. And here I am running a Fortune 100 company, being able to bring the voice of everyday people and understanding who we are and why we do what we do and why it matters. I get to think about Otis and Rosie Brown every single day. They taught me values. I love sports, so that any given day, get back at it, get up, get going. So those real character drivers, which as you mentioned, when I think about the Otis and Rosie Brown Foundation, it is anchored in character. We award scholarships based on character, not your GPA, but the input of who you are is what we want to celebrate. And seeing the unseen, which represents who my mom and dad are. They are ordinary people, but they had an extraordinary output in my life and for so many others. And so my parents have shaped me in a real material way about financial dignity, about the importance of financial inclusion, and about the burden that it brings to a family when you don't have all of those resources or access to even understanding how to have better financial outcomes.
Quick, difficult follow-up question.
Yes.
New York sports teams or
Yes.
Texas sports teams?
Ooh.
See, I told you.
Yeah, that's really difficult. I love the Knicks, but I love what the Mavericks are doing. The Giants, Cowboys, I think I'll do a push.
That's tough.
It's
That's
a real
okay, I
tough
hear you.
one. I do not
I
want
hear
to
you.
really answer that one.
And last question. You talk a little bit about doom and gloom, the retirement crisis, but really, how full is the glass? I mean, is it half empty? Because people have been talking about this retirement problem for a while. We seem to muddle through. Is it that bad? How bad is it? Are you an optimist, pessimist? Where do you end up?
Well, I'm always going to be an optimist because I get to work with 16,000 associates that are working to tackle this problem. I think it is a real problem because it's people we know. It's our family, it's our friends, it's people in our community. We see it firsthand. People that are not retiring with the confidence of saying they have enough to take care of their basic needs. But why am I optimistic? I'm optimistic is because we're talking more about it more than ever before. I'm optimistic because we are working at the federal level and the state level on a bipartisan way to be able to make it easier. We are passing legislation, the Secure Act 1.0, 2.0. We are passing legislation across the country that's making it easier. And I'm optimistic because we understand what's at stake. When people can feel like that they can work for decades and have enough money to not worry, that to me builds the entire economy. It builds families. It gives you the confidence that you're not transferring debt, you're transferring wealth. And so I am optimistic because I think it's a problem that is worth solving. And I think it's a problem that we're continuing to shine a spotlight on, and we're seeing progress being made.
Thasunda Duckett, CEO of TIAA, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. This is great. Thank you.
This is at Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll catch you next time.